Hello, everybody. This is Zach's at it again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and I am honored to be here with Wytheville native Sterling Crockett. He was the keynote speaker of the Martin Luther King celebration day at the Millwald Theatre on Sunday, January 19th. I was not able to be at the presentation personally as I had hoped, but Mr. Crockett was kind enough to share with me his speech, and I was able to create an article covering that speech. And thank you, Sterling, for being with me today. It's an honor to have met and connected with you, and thank you for the kind words you've said about the article.
Uh, yes, Zach, thank you. Thanks for the invitation and being able to come on and speak about the article. It was, or my address. It was a very important one for me. I've given address in several forums and so forth. But they say there's no place like home, and there's no place like speaking. People to people from your home. Some of the people that were in that audience have known me for all of my life. But, before we get into this, I first just want to thank you for the care that you brought to the article. In particular, when I read the line that you wrote throughout the address, Crockett drew a sharp distinction between individual responsibility and systemic failure. I was very moved, by that. Number one, I think it's the center of gravity for the article, but that sentence also captures my work pretty cleanly and responsibly, and it was one of the key messages that I wanted to communicate.
My point on your speech was it is both a systematic governmental failure and
Right.
and a response as an individual for us to do those things. And I thought your speech brought that home so well.
Right. Right. Well, thank you, and I totally agree with you. In a lot of the cases, it's the systems and the way that we're doing things that are hurting and damaging people and keeping them from living the best version of themselves. Now, I spent most of my professional career in construction. And so in my writings, I gravitate to construction terms. And so I call it architecture. So the outcomes that we're seeing are pretty consistent with the architecture. But what gets all the attention is the difference between the various groups, whether that's because of race, disability, as you mentioned, and so forth. That's what we're focusing on. When really, we should be attacking and addressing is the foundation, the way that we do things, and the systems that we're operating under. And we know how to do this. This is the thing that's so perplexing to me, and it brings me to the point of my affinity and the genuine love that I have for Wytheville. It was a very different place when I grew up there than it is now. Yes, there were racial differences and different things to deal with, but that was only part of the story. There was a whole lot of other, very, 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 very positive things. Number one, for me as a black kid, growing up there, being wayward, ambitious, sometimes just wild. I was given, second and sometimes third chances to get my act together. And today, one mistake and you're thrown away. And as you know, it takes personal failure and recovery to learn. I mean, there was a genuine care and generosity that I encountered in Whitfield as I approached graduation from college and ultimately going to Ferrum, my parents had divorced.
Mm-hmm.
I had opportunities at that time to play in a Division I basketball program. Unfortunately, I hadn't done the work in the classroom, and I couldn't accept any of those offers. But I wanted to keep that option alive, so I went to junior college at Ferrum, which is known as Ferrum College. Today when I went there, it was Ferrum Junior College.
Mm.
But they didn't offer scholarships. So I was on my own. I got myself, admitted, the finances and everything in order for the first year. Was coming back for my sophomore year as one of the co-captains of the team, and fell short on raising the money to go, and was gravitating towards my plan B, which was to go to the Army on the mini GI Bill and get a college degree. Well, somebody from the community of Wytheville stepped up anonymously and paid my tuition.
And to this day, you don't know who that is.
No, I don't. That was part of the agreement. This was all orchestrated by my coach, Coach Burns, who coached there up to a few years ago. He found out about my dilemma, reached out to me, asked me not to make any decisions and so forth until I heard back from him. And when I heard back from him, he told me that there was someone there in the community that watched me grow up, that felt that I had potential, and they wanted to see me go back to school. They wanted to pay my tuition under two conditions. Number one, that they remain anonymous. And number two, that if I ever find myself in a position that I could be the same or similar for someone else, that I would do so. And my wife and I, we delivered on that. Probably about 15 years ago, we have a scholarship endowment at the universities at Shady Grove, which is in Montgomery County, Maryland, where we used to reside.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 students a year get money from our endowment. So, it was a blessing, and I think a good investment. When I consider all the things that I went on to do, and I mean contributions to society. I mean, I've created businesses that have employed hundreds of people. Created nonprofits for various causes and so forth. But I will say that all of it, everything that I've done, has been grounded in the values and so forth that were imparted upon me in Wytheville, Virginia. And I always give that credit, no matter where I am, what I may be recognized for, I always recognize, Wytheville. Yeah, there were challenges just like everywhere else.
Yeah.
But there were things, at least in my case, Zach, that existed there in the community that I could latch on to overcome some of those, disabilities and unfairness.
So when you came back to Wytheville, 2 days ago, I guess it was. Mm-hmm. Was that your first visit to Wytheville in quite a while?
Well, no, I've been there, I guess about three months before, but I get back there at least once or twice a year.
Okay.
I used to come a lot more when my father, Colson, was still living,
mm-hmm.
But I'm very good friends with Glenda Crockett, who's with Virginia Organizing,
mm-hmm.
and we collaborate and so forth. I believe that's how I ended up being the keynote speaker. But
she's a very special lady.
Yeah, and I've quietly, because I don't think everything needs a spotlight, but
Sure.
I have supported quite a few causes in Wytheville. Like I said, you experience that type of generosity that is a life-changing moment. It shapes your philosophy and how you do things going forward.
And it was a thrill for you to be back at the Millwald.
Oh yeah, yeah, it really was. I used to go to the Millwald a lot. I love movies. And even remembered, the last movie I'd seen there, as I covered in my talks and you covered in the article, was Star Wars. And so I was very excited to hear that it was being restored, and that's where the event was being handled.
And isn't it lovely now?
Oh, it is. Yeah. It is. It's very. I really enjoyed my time there.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about you growing up in Wytheville some. Tell me about some of the great lessons, however you want to address it, good, bad, or indifferent. Tell me about some of the great lessons you learned as a native of Wytheville.
Well, it just, I said that, before, talked about, second and third chances and so forth. For the most part, I found Wytheville to be, pretty fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my opinion of it would probably be a lot different, Zach, than others, because, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about this, and what I experienced in Wytheville, and how my parents handled things versus how they grew up. I mean, of course, both going to integrated schools and so forth. So
absolutely.
I remembered, they used to have, it wasn't called kindergarten. I think it was called Head Start. And it was time for me to go to Spiller for Head Start. And my dad, who never missed work for anything, he was missing work that day to bring me. I had relatives and so forth that were coming by the house, and they were bringing me. It was all this excitement about kindergarten. But later, and after thinking about it and why it was like that and so forth, I was like one of the first people in my family to go to a fully integrated school. So that represented big change, for them. And so what I'm going to say, it's general in nature. I think you can relate. I mean, you have a disability, so you understand, some of the unfairness and so forth that you encounter out there. But until it changes, I mean, you have to manage it. You have to deal with it.
Right.
And in my household, racism, it exists, unfairness and so forth, it exists, but it existed in many forms. And at the end of the day, what was going to make a difference is how important was what you were trying to do to you, how committed to you are you to it. And if all of that's in the right place, you'll figure it out. You will figure it out. The other thing that I think really shaped me was I grew up there on 14th Street, 230 South 14th Street. And I mean, you're familiar with the makeup of Wytheville. Your two predominantly black communities, the Hill and Tin Town. But we didn't live in either. We lived out on 14th Street. And that block was integrated. So all of my life, I grew up around, Caucasian people that I knew to be very, very good people. So, I didn't grow up categorizing people.
Which is a very paints our town in a very positive light, that people are people, for the most part.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I grew up. I mean, I went to their houses for dinner. They came across the street. With and one of the gentlemen was Mr. Heldred, and I played with his son Todd. And if they were going somewhere, they would take me. I would go with them.
Right.
And so forth. And so, so my belief is there's good and bad. There's good and bad people.
Everywhere.
Number one, everywhere. And I do believe that race, and this may be a little bit deeper discussion that you want to have, but I feel that race is a human construct.
I would agree.
To keep us divided, like I said, and fighting about outcomes and whose fault it is, and never pausing to think about how we're doing things and how it's impacting all of us. And it's just like in my address, I talked about the drug crisis and so forth, and it's affected Caucasian families and Black families in very, very different ways. But at the end of the day, the outcome is the same. So we have interest. We have interest around this issue, but we never come together and talk about it. And I do think that that's by design.
Do you find that Wytheville now is the same welcoming place it was when you were growing up?
No, it's not.
It is
It's
not.
not.
It is not.
And that's heartbreaking.
And what is the change?
Well, I think the people are still good and everything. I just think it's the conditions that they're living under on a day-to-day basis. Again, the outcomes tend to be pretty consistent with the foundation or the system that we're working under. I mean, I grew up in Wytheville, manicured lawns, a bustling, Main Street. I come there now, it's about the same number of people, but in a lot of ways it resembles a ghost town.
Right.
I think everything has to start somewhere, and I do think the renovation of the Millwald and so forth is a great start. But I think there's other things that need to follow, and it needs to happen pretty aggressively, because we can all see how quickly now, because of technology and all this stuff, things change. And that's only going to become more aggressive.
So what can we, as citizens of this town, do to get it back where it was? Let's say socially, when you were growing up.
Yeah, I think you have the beginning. There's plenty of churches, so people are going to church and so forth. So, I'd say anything to attempt to start bringing people together, to talk about the issues and so forth, because as you know, change begins with awareness, and a lot of folks, they're like, okay, I'm experiencing this and so forth. They think they understand why, but they don't.
So,
and it takes talking to others at times to see that awareness. But Zach, I tell you, the question you're asking me is it's a very difficult question to answer. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of forces out there that keep not only Wytheville, but towns throughout Appalachia, in this state.
Do you think, and I'm asking the question based on my own experience, that people don't do, that we don't do what we should do, because if I bring up the struggles that I am encountering as a disabled person, somebody will say, "Or why didn't you say something we did not know?"
Right.
People use um, their ignorance as a cop out for having to do anything simply because I don't know about it, I don't have to do anything, or I don't have to pretend to care. Do you think that
Right.
that is where we are at this space?
Yeah. It appears to be. I think that's an accurate characterization. And as you know, I mean, so much of life is online and so forth, and that whole world has become so confusing that you don't even really know who you may be talking to. Number one, and then people have a tendency to be something other than themselves online,
Very
and
much.
so I think one of the things that keeps things on track is civility.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's one of those core things that would have to come back. Okay, civility, empathy, and care.
Yeah.
Uh,
Non apathetic attitudes.
exactly. But it just come to a place where I think we become too comfortable watching other people's suffering or suffer. I remember, my grandmother, Marie Chafin, who lived in the house with her, my mom's mom. You know, nobody ever came to our house in need of anything that she didn't give. And, sometimes we had, we had a little bit ourselves. But if somebody came by, you know, and they needed something to eat, they were given something to eat.
Right.
You know how older Southern women are. Baby, where's your coat? Oh, well, here.
Right.
That's the way. That's the way we used to. That's the way we used to do things.
And if somebody comes to your house in the South, and black, white, or otherwise, if somebody comes to your house, the first thing you want to do, have you eaten? Can I offer you something to eat? Can I offer you something to drink? That is what we are supposed to do.
Right. When I was a kid growing up there, and just say, for instance, you were walking up Main Street, would not pass not one person that didn't say hello, good morning, something.
Right.
Right. Now it's just
you're afraid.
It's just not there for whatever reason.
You're afraid.
To
you
say
can
something.
be afraid to say hello because somebody might pull out a gun and waste you. And it's very frightening because, as you said, with AI, well, not even with AI, with people, you have what I like to call keyboard warriors. They can get online and rip you up one side and down the other. But if you met them face to face, they couldn't say what they're saying to you. They wouldn't say what they're saying to you.
Right.
And and then with AI, we're raising our brains to be dumber because we're all getting addicted to devices. I see it with my own 11-year-old daughter, and myself. I don't knock myself out of this. I became a published author because of instantaneous electronic publishing. Otherwise, I would never have published a book. So but we lose that human touch and that human contact. In your speech, you said the signs may still say welcome, but inside the building is a different story. And I think that's the point we're alluding to as we're talking about this.
Yes, and my experience, with that. I mean, I've lived my life. I would say as a bit of a trailblazer.
I would say so.
My parents and relatives and so forth there in Wytheville. I mean, they all worked in agriculture, construction, factories, and so forth. I think I was one of the first, to work in corporate America. I mean, when I finished playing ball at Ione and earned my economics degree, probably about 30 days before I even graduated, I was accepted into the Bank of New York's management trainee program. And, just thrilled, excited. And you go there for orientation the first day, had it at the Marriott, and it's, welcome, managerial candidates, Bank of New York. I mean, it was a big deal, so you feel good. Mm-hmm. And then I walk into the room as one black of a total of 45 candidates. And the room almost fell in silence. And so I go from this tremendous high of feeling welcomed and so forth to this tremendous low, like, you're not supposed to be here. Mm-hmm. So that's a bit of an extreme, kind of example. But I'm sure people, for various reasons, I mean, for whatever reasons, I mean, and I'm sure you've experienced it and so forth, as a disabled person, people will be uncomfortable when you come around. Mm-hmm. At the core, it's the same thing.
Right. And then again, as uncomfortable as that is, if you don't do that, if you don't be the first one, who's going to be the first one?
Exactly. And Zach, I know we're coming up on time here, but I would be remiss if I didn't say this, because it's important,
right?
And because I think sometimes I had Guyanese friends in New York, and they have this saying called Sankofa, and the loose translation of it is that sometimes you have to look to your past to find yourself, so you can move forward stronger. And I think that's a really, really important reason for towns like Wytheville to take a look to the past. What worked, what didn't work, how do we get off track here, and so forth. But I can tell you, and people would probably think this would be the very opposite, but I was a black kid, grew up in the South, in a town where we were probably 1% or less of the total population, but I never spent one day afraid or insecure for my safety simply because of the color of my skin. Now, I'm not saying that others didn't, but I never did. So I don't think it's necessarily race and racism that we can point to. I honestly, like I said in my address, I mean, I think in some instances it's a total failure of leadership. Mm-hmm. But they'll keep us arguing back and forth about race and so forth, again, because that keeps them from having to be held accountable.
Yes, accountability is the key.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Accountability is the key. Well, right. I can't tell you how honored I am to have met you. I do hope that I am able to meet you in the not too distant future. I thank you for coming to Wytheville. Thank you for your keynote address. Thank you for being a trailblazer and not being afraid to be the first. And I hope that I speak for the rest of my town when I say you do us very, very proud. And I personally, I'm very proud to know you.
Right. Well, that's very touching. And what I wanted to just say in closing is, like, I couldn't have done it, without a lot of very, very, very good people in my hometown. That's why I also said in my address that, my work and professional career took me to different areas, but I carried Wytheville and the people of Wytheville into every room I ever entered or whatever place. I never wanted to embarrass a place that gave me so much.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you, Zach.